2, 1, action.
Good evening. The board has just returned from executive session and we're going to move to our public portion. May we please stand for the pledge?
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Wait a second. Second, all in favor? Aye. Wonderful. You're operating.
So this evening, we have the pleasure of introducing the public to our valedictorian and salutatorian. I just want to say that I've had an opportunity over the last several weeks to spend some time chatting with them, to congratulate them and sharing a dinner with them at a recent scholastic evening with Mr. Giovanini. I'm going to ask Mr. Giovanini to do the formal intro and introduce the group to the two of them to the board.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce our valedictorian for this school year. Like Dr. Laurel said, we had a nice dinner last week. Had a nice time. Two great students here. Our valedictorian is Peter Kochek, and our salutatorian is Peter Cohen. So, congratulations. I've had the pleasure this whole year to do the announcements with Taylor. She does the pledge and we do the announcements every morning. And Peter, I got to know more recently, so it's been an absolute pleasure to work with such great kids. And thank you for the opportunity to do so. Congratulations to you, Peter, and congratulations to Taylor.
Where are you going to school?
I was going to say, just explain briefly
What your
what you
favorite
told me.
moment was?
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm Peter Kochek, and I went to Furnace Woods, and I'd say my favorite handheld moment was probably FBLA States was pretty good. I would like that. I'll go with that.
Tell them where you're going to school.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to University of Rochester next year. Yeah, and my major is business analytics.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kayla Cohen. I'm going to UC Davis and I'm studying animal science. And that kind of ties into my favorite moment of Penn Hud. I was in the science research program. And within that, I was able to compete and meet with a mentor. And I was able to study canine cognition. And that really developed my passion. And I'm going to pursue that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here and Mr. Giovanni. Thank you. All right. So the first part of the meeting is the audience comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Carmen, who's our first speaker tonight?
Our first speaker is Deb Plunkett.
Okay. Just so you know, there's 3 minutes. There's a clock up on the screen so that you know how much time is left.
We'll read really fast.
All right. Go for it. Let her rip.
Good evening. I would like to take a few minutes to speak about the social emotional wellness of our student athletes. Just a little background information. I was a teacher for 25 years in Kids 110, District 9 in the Bronx. For those of you that may know the Bronx, my school is located on Petrona Park South, 167th Street, far cry from Albany Post Road. I wouldn't trade my experiences of time teaching in a high need area for anything in the world. We were meeting the social emotional needs of our students long before our name was given to it. This leads me to the concerns I would like to address. On May 15th, I had a meeting with Dr. Phyllis Amore and Mr. Tom Baker regarding how we are meeting the social emotional needs of our student athletes. During this meeting, I brought up concerns regarding the training of our coaches in social emotional wellness. Yes, coaches that are teachers may be well versed in this area thanks to the COVID pandemic. During that time, teachers were made aware of the importance of open lines of communication with students, what to look for students who are struggling, and how to help them meet their needs. However, I don't know if you're aware, 1/3 of our coaches are not teachers and have never been trained in that. So let me be clear what I mean. We need to teach our coaches what social emotional wellness is and how to implement it on and off the field. There's no formal training in Penn Hud for this. I don't know if other districts do it, and honestly, I don't care if they do. That's not an excuse not to. I'm sure there are teachers right in-house, guidance counselors, social workers in the district, well-versed, that can turnkey some of the training to our coaches. We all want to win games. It's one of the reasons we play sports. I'm not saying that we need to put that on the back burner. I'm not saying that we need to revamp our whole athletic philosophy. What I'm saying is we need to communicate with our athletes in a way that makes them feel seen and heard. We're not doing it. Our coaches are not being trained. I know we're a district in transition, and I know you as board members have a lot on your plates. It's a big ask, but I'm asking it anyway. I'm asking it on behalf of our athletes. Please look into putting some sort of formal, accountable, social, emotional, professional development in place for our coaches. Remember the number, 1/3. Our children would be better because of it. And let me close on this. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among US adolescents between the ages of 15 to 24. We don't want any of our athletes to fall in that. Please look into why our coaches don't go through some sort of social wellness training. Thanks for your time.
And our speaker is Christine Teagan. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak before the agenda. I appreciate that very much. And I also appreciate that there will be a Spanish translator at the forum next week. I hope that becomes more of a norm going forward. I know we have a whole forum ahead of us next week, and I appreciate that it's being held, but I also I feel like I need a lot of answers before I'm able to speak to what is happening. I think I appreciate that there was a bunch of new options presented, but it was not really presented with much information that is helpful in helping us to decide what might be best and helping you. There's class size, there's demographics, but next week, when you hear everybody speaking at the forum, pretty much it's going to be a lot of anecdotal information, people sharing their very personal experiences, people sharing information based on questionable data that they think that they have, rumors that have been spread on social media. I think half the people don't even actually know what's true anymore. So I really wish that we could come more prepared to respond to more information. I personally believe that grade banding is what's best, but I have plenty of reasons to feel that way. But if facts were presented that made me understand otherwise, I'd be happy to go with whatever is best for the community at large, especially in the long term. So since I don't really have that, I have come prepared with a list of questions. I hope a lot of people bring a lot of questions. The document that you posted that with all the different new options, I would love to see that alongside the answers to many things. I also would love to see problems actually identified, because we haven't actually given grade banding much of a chance yet. And so I think it's important to address what problems exist and how to solve them before we even decide that we're going to make any changes. So I'm just going to start with my questions, and probably a minute is not near enough to finish them, but I'll email you. All right, so first of all, we know transportation was an issue. We've taken steps towards fixing that. But we also know parents take issue with having their kids in different buildings. Nothing has really been done to alleviate that burden, or at least hasn't been talked about yet. So what are the plans for that? Have the current problems with the problems with the current model been identified, and it would be prudent to first identify those and then come up with a plan? What are the district boundary changes that were made for the various models, especially Plan D, that was not made clear? I think it's really important to address the advantages and disadvantages for all the stakeholders, for our students, our teachers, our administrators, for Dr. Ruller and Ms. Schuckman, the principals, the parents. Do you plan on hiring a superintendent before making this massive decision? Can we be privy to a timeline for all this decision making, et cetera? Okay, thank you. Have a lovely evening. Yeah, thank you. Here's our last one.
Okay, yes,
Clarify.
definitely. I don't know if you want to do it now.
No, just not to leave it hanging out there, but to just respond a little bit. I think those are all good points and good questions and don't expect answers. I don't think that's what the board wanted to do. The board was inviting those kinds of things so that we can make a plan from that point forward. So by December, they could make an intelligent decision. And I don't want to give you any expectation because I want to be the first one to tell you I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't give you answers to class sizes and the like for it. We need to narrow the plans down. So that's the purpose of what's the discussion, and then allow us to do a deep dive before a final decision is made, maybe down to the last two choices, something to help get us to what does the community want and what are they thinking. So I invite everyone to come. The purpose is exactly what you said, to bring in your questions. I'm not sure we're going to have all the answers, but we're willing to take them and accept them, and then give us time. We're going to switch to a different procedure in the future going forward, as long as I'm here anyway. And that is, we're going to try to make one meeting a month a business meeting, and the one meeting a month, probably the first meeting of the month, will be a study session. So in depth, no other distractions, and then the board can concentrate on the business at hand, so that we don't let those things, one thing take over the other, because that's what we just finished coming out of. We don't want to go through that again. So I hope it was just clarifying what the intent was. It was to invite that kind of input. I don't know if the other board members
So
want to
while
say.
we're on it, is it okay, can we just, Carmen, is there any rule against moving this 7.1? We can just talk about it now, cross it off later, that way we don't jump. Okay, so thanks for that, Dr. Laurel. We were going to eventually get to talking about this, and I'm gonna turn it over to Jen eventually, but I would
take a vote, make sure it's okay with
Is everybody okay? Can I have a motion to move the
To 7.
president's report 7. Sorry, I lost it, 7.1?
Yeah.
Up ahead of the consent agenda? Second? All in favor? All right, cool. So, before we get into, we'll run through a few of these, each of the considerations, but that is exactly what they are. In March, the board,
Your hair.
my hair. In March, in March, the board tabled the decision, postponed the vote to December so that we could have community input, stakeholder feedback, engagement, and work with everybody, from the teachers to the students, to the parents, to the taxpayers, on where we go from here with elementary school. So our first real kickoff is the June 7th forum. And yes, we're going to hear so much. But I think it's important that people look at all of the different options that fit. So these options here are not because one of us thought this could be a really great plan necessarily. It's more about what configurations can we come up with that actually fit in our physical buildings? And then as we go, let's talk about the positives and the negatives and what is advantageous and what we don't like and what we do like. So next Wednesday, June 7th at FGL will be our first forum from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Soon thereafter, we will be announcing smaller group sessions so that we can actually have more intimate conversations, and people who don't want to get up and talk at a forum, or they just want to have another conversation, can attend those as well. We're actually going to probably make one of them solely Spanish speaking for our families that prefer to speak in Spanish. So that will be available as well. And I think we've already created, right, the district landing page for this topic. Yes, good. No, isn't there a QR code to it?
I thought we had a QR code set up. Wasn't Karen doing that yet? Not yet?
It takes you, it will take you somewhere. All right.
That's something.
Well, the goal is to end up on a landing page where you can find all of these, all the updates that are around this topic. An easy place to go so that you can find the information on what's to come, and how you can get involved. As always, you can email the board, which is boe@henhoodschools.org, on this topic, and we're reading everything that comes in. So with that, I'm going to have Jen just run through the various configurations that are on our new document from this evening.
Sure. So we sat down and we had looked at 5 different options that we'd like to take the community through. A few are plans that we've either have, or have already spoken about, and there are also 2 new plans that we'd like to present to the community for feedback. So Plan A is the current model. It's 2-year grade banding of between pre-K through 1 at one school, BB. And the BB has 2 grades, and then Furnace Woods has 2 grades. And in here, it gives you the enrollment, the current enrollment for each school, for each grade, as well as the diversity between each building and the economically disadvantaged students as well. And we talk about classroom sizes and also other classroom needs. So 2 pre-K buildings between Furnace Woods and 1 3-5 building. This was currently what we spoke about last. This was Plan B. Again, this is the same. Currently, we were looking at this as the same lines that were previously presented to the community. We have 2 K through 2 buildings, and then 1 3 through 5 building. Plan C is our original model, which is 3 K-5 buildings. And here we also will follow along. This is the original district lines, K through 5 at BB, Wright G, and Furnace Woods. And then Plan D is 2 K through 4, pre-K through 4 buildings, which would be at Furnace Woods and FGL. And then 1 5 through 8 middle school. So, and this would have BB being repurposed as a district building. And so this would be moving 5th grade to Blue Mountain Middle School. And then the last option, Plan E, is 1 pre-K through 1 building at Furnace Woods, 1 2 through 4 building at FGL, and then again, moving 5th grade to Blue Mountain and repurposing BB for other district business. So like Dennis did state, we have more information on the first 3 plans than on the last 2 plans. Those will be conversations that we can have. And the disadvantages and advantages is something that that is the purpose of meeting with the community, to develop the community's thoughts and feelings about the disadvantages and advantages of each model. I don't think it would be, it would not be best practice if we gave those to you today. I think we need to listen to how the community views each of these plans before we move forward. Like Alexis said, we're going to be having small group forums, meetings with community members after next week's meeting. We also plan to be meeting with staff. We are hoping to have district leaders as part of the forum next week. And at forums going forward. The timeline is for a decision to be made in December. So these are all the plans as we move along to make a decision in December. And Dennis said, we want to start to narrow at some point the plans down so that in December, we have a vote of, 2 plans that we start looking at narrowly.
And we're also gonna just like add and throw in things that the community asks for. So, if we have a survey, I'm sure will go out, but let's just say we have a meeting and the community wants us to survey the whole community, all of the taxpayers, right? Which we will do anyway, using it as an example. We may just then announce, hey, this is what we're adding. It's gonna be coming. Look out for it. Remember, please fill this out.
I think that would be helpful. If you mentioned a timeline. If the community could see everything that we do have planned and dates, that whether it's a date to be determined or a date that's in concrete, that way they can see all the efforts that we've made so far, so that they can maybe help see the point out some maybe the blind spots that we haven't thought of.
Yeah.
And then publish that to the community, so we all know where we're going.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so now we're moving on. Anybody have any questions, anything to add?
Jen, I just was unclear about 2 of the options have BB closing and repurpose for district business. What district business would you foresee?
I think there's a few things. I think at Blue Mountain right now, there's some special ed, some space used for special ed. So we would have to probably relocate those personnel to somewhere else in order to make room for fifth grade. We talked about, we'd like to still keep to use the gym open space. We could use it as part of strategic plan. We talked about different opportunities for real life skills. So we were hoping we could maybe use some of the classrooms. I mean, these are options that we
Also, I
are
think
throwing out there.
We have to, correct me if I'm wrong, don't we use other spaces for certain testing, like? Don't we,
Alternate testing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
right, so
We
you
can
can
do
use it
that.
for that, you can do PD, right, personal development training for teachers there.
Making sure that it's not closing.
No.
It could become a polling place, right? You can have events there, so you can still use it, and you can actually make it a revenue generating facility where you could charge people to use the facility.
Yeah, we could rent out space for after school programs. I mean, I think there's opportunities there, but the intent is not to close it or sell it. It would be something that we would hold on, but we would not use as.
And it would, yeah. And
Also, I'm sorry.
My last question was, in our next meeting, the community could anticipate that we're gonna actually get to see some metrics for test scores, student growth, parental involvement.
yes, our next meeting on June 14th is
14th.
elementary school.
Okay.
Not in four.
Not a-
Not in the four.
Our next actual board meeting is June 14th, and the elementary school principals will be putting together a presentation for the community and for the board.
Perfect.
Also, the way we can repurpose BV is in two ways also. We can put more solar panels because now we don't need children to be outside. And that's very profitable. And since we won't have also a lot of children, we can allow for tower cells that are very, very profitable.
And then, that's great. One other, is there,
So like I know a little bit and not enough to speak specifically to it. If we have a building like our district office, we get no aid for that building because it houses no students. So if we were to put the district office there and have some classroom utilization, then we would get state aid for operation of our district office that we don't get now, or no, am I getting too creative there?
No, that's very creative, but I don't know how they would look at it. I mean, without any doubt, you are on the right path because any central office that is located in a building, it gets stated.
So if we have an enclosed walkway between the district office and Frank G, we get state aid, but because it's standalone, we get zero for the operational piece of the district office, right?
Exactly.
And all of these will also have costs attached to them, real numbers, where taxpayers would know the actual cost.
Sure.
Not for the seven.
Like, you remember when we were going through with 2 and 3 plans, how much it takes a lot. So I think what we want to do is hear
Yeah.
feedback and know, okay, the community does not like this, right? So we can.
We might
maybe
want to
move
start
past
take,
it.
yeah, at some point, we're gonna start looking to take plans off the table, if that, before we deep dive into every single metrics for every single option.
Right, any other questions? Okay, move
So-
on.
One other, I'll just share there. With this document being put on board docs, there's been a bunch of questions coming up about the BB cafeteria work. If they're starting in a month or any day now, if we're gonna go ahead and close the building, are we really gonna spend that money on a cafeteria for a building that's not gonna operate? It's a question that was raised this week after this was put up on board docs, I guess. So just wanted to share that because it came via text.
That's a legitimate question, because if that's something that you're gonna do and you're actually considering, that's $1 million project. That's $1 million that could go somewhere else. So that, maybe we do put a pause on that project until you vet what options are gonna be viable for the community.
But wouldn't it still add value? Like, wouldn't it still be?
Yeah, I don't think that we should be pausing. that project.
If you're not
I'm still
gonna
gonna
have,
use the building, right? And you can
if you're
still
using
use
it for PD, for professional development, you're not gonna need $1 million cafeteria renovation. I'm just thinking that $1 million could go into whatever one of these plans that you choose.
Isn't it also an auditorium, right? Isn't it like an auditoria? Right, so wouldn't you be able to use it for shows and
But are we gonna
events,
build it, but we made,
conferences?
I'm not saying, I'm not offering an opinion, because I don't really have one yet. But it's an interesting question, because do you use the $1 million for that space, but are you gonna build it the same way if it's gonna house children or if it's gonna house performances? So how are we utilizing, we have limited resources, we're deploying resources. Does it make sense? Look, the understanding is a decade ago they were gonna do this, and then there was talk of not using BV, and here we are with a whole bunch of kids in a pretty crappy auditorium, cafeteria, whatever it's called.
Not pretty,
So,
very.
right,
I don't think we should pause the project.
But it's also, I think it's too late. The contracts have been signed, the work's scheduled to start in a matter of days, if not, you know,
days.
yeah, there's days away, so.
Yeah.
Can that's great, for me. Can that even be, like, you can't just.
I think we can
Right,
deploy
but
the
also
grant
we're
money.
not spending the full $1 million, right? We get state aid back for a
Yeah.
portion of it, which is why we're doing it, right? So what's the net cost of that?
40% aid, right?
40% aid, so we're talking about $600,000, not $1 million. So that's nothing to sneeze at, right?
Right.
But we're not talking about $1 million.
Okay, this district has had instances where they've used money to redo the spaces and they have not been used. So I know you're saying even if we're not spending the whole $1 million, I'm sorry, it's still taxpayer money. And you're not gonna be fully utilizing that building as an elementary school.
Perhaps, and maybe we can ask Enrique and Dennis to look into whether it's even an option, but we signed we approved those contracts months ago,
Yeah, I
work
don't
will start now, so.
Like, what would be the penalty of canceling at this point? I mean, it would be very tough. Like, this is the decision that unfortunately the cart went before the horse.
Still, even if there's a penalty for it.
Okay, so
I don't know that, yeah.
but we don't even know if it's an option, so
Right.
if they.
Find out if it's an option first before, because I don't disagree with you, but I don't know if you can stop the train at this point.
Right,
And what will we do? Like, it hasn't been done in how many years, and I get not, like, it has to eventually be done regardless of what you're using it for.
Yeah, but how would you do it? I mean, it would be terrible to
It
spend
depends on-
money
right,
and then
the
rip that
furniture,
out
the
to do
configuration.
something else because we have.
Right, well, I don't
Me neither.
It's
It would
all
be
that
irresponsible
bedrock
not to
under
mention it
it,
while we're
that's
talking
Yeah, yeah,
about this. I'm not suggesting we go one way or the other. I just wanted to raise the point of our conversation.
No, it'll start after the students are.
It starts the last month of school and it continues into the first month of next year. My understanding of the timeline is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts in a week and a
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
Because the last 3 weeks, the students will have lunch outside. So I think they already deployed some of the equipment and whatever.
If we had this discussion 3 or 4 months ago, it would have been easier, but the fact that we're starting in a week.
I'm just saying that you're gonna pick a plan, and one of these plans might need money to update a building to make the plan what's best for the community. So I just as a taxpayer, I'm telling you that if you picked a plan that had BV closed and you put $1 million of my money into that cafeteria, I would have a huge problem with that. Okay, I'm just saying, I mean, you have to think from a taxpayer's standpoint.
I mean, that's your perspective of one taxpayer, so I guess we'll hear from the community next week.
And
That's what this is about. So
And-
we'll hear from them.
Well,
Wasn't
that,
BB
this
done-
is not about the PB cafeteria. That's why.
But
Yeah.
I'm sure you
But
will
it was
now hear
good.
from the community.
it was partially done for safety reasons, correct? The BB cafeteria, is it a safety issue? Is it just
Yeah,
cosmetic?
It's
Is it just
functionality.
functional?
Have you been there?
dysfunctional.
Yeah, I have, and it was terrible. I hate to say it, but it's not a great space for a cafeteria and auditorium. But
It's similar to the Furnace Woods
But if-
cafeteria.
yes, but if it's rebuilt in a way that it could be reconfigured more easily, then, you know, maybe it's just adjusting how we build it out, because I understand it's all about bedrock, right? There's a big bedrock issue, there's a lot of demolition that needs to go on. But if they create a space that's easier to reconfigure, then if there is a change in model, maybe that's a way that you spent the money better,
Right,
right?
but I'm thinking that if you take two buildings, Furnace Woods being one, and Furnace Woods cafeteria is similar to BB. That money could be used to repurpose Furnace Woods cafeteria to make it look more like Frank G. Lindsay's cafeteria that has this wide open space. Just throwing it out there. And although I am one taxpayer perspective, Jen, we all have to be fiscally responsible and mindful of every taxpayer out there.
Like I said, that is the purpose of the forum.
Right.
We have an inbox, we've presented it, we will hear from them. But we will hear from them. However it rolls, we will hear from them.
And I think
And
fair to ask,
Dennis
yeah,
and
let us know what the
every
options
day
are.
can take a look at the contract and see if it's even possible. We may end up losing more money
I mean, we're
doing
also,
that, but we'll,
and if the design of this is like,
an improvement for any use.
right, it's not so focused on children, right? It has to be done.
That's.
You don't let your house, if you have a room that's decrepit and falling apart, you don't just leave it because you're like, I'm not really gonna use that room
Well,
anymore.
I'm gonna sell my house.
Right.
Right, I'm
Use
gonna
that
sell my
anymore.
house, maybe I
I
shouldn't
think so
fix
long as
it.
it's not geared to second and third graders, right? And that it's I think. we
Well,
have to have
maybe
a
be
conversation.
prudent and mindful
Yes,
that you said we weren't spending the whole million, that maybe we should be spending even less.
Correct.
So it's updated, but.
But
we
maybe
still
we
have
don't buy the
money.
furniture, maybe we don't do, yeah.
Configurable, right?
Right.
So make it
let's
so that you can
look
build
into
something.
more specifically into the exact plans. Because I don't think we've ever gotten into those weeds, and then we can update the board and the community. Cool. All right, yep,
Sorry,
that's great.
we might be in the same place in 3 months with the APC. So probably it might be a good time for you to
ABC.
to discuss.
Oh, EPC,
EPC.
oh,
Energy performance contract.
oh,
We are in the midst of signing a contract.
but
Yeah, but that's still
That's
saving us money for a building that we're gonna use. You're saying about the functionality of the building?
No, what I'm saying is, if we decide to close it, then you don't have enough savings, because if everything is flat and you are only using
Oh,
2 rooms, you are putting new lights to the whole building. You don't see the savings.
But what kind of timeline are we talking about with the BV closing options? I don't think we're talking about in a year or 2 years. Is it? Is it right away?
I mean, it's not gonna be this week or this month,
the idea would be.
but I mean, it could easily be for September of the following of 24, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal.
The goal of December of 23 was to be able to like stop this conversation from continuing for.
Unless there was a reason we had to wait based
Yeah, of
on
course.
enrollment or, you know.
But these plans fit,
So 2 years, 2 years of using the building.
no,
It's
one.
1 year?
Potentially, and listen, first of all,
Potentially.
there's 5 plans on the table. 2 of them talk about that building not being utilized, right? So it's,
It could be a moot point, because the community could
Correct.
come out and say that that's not even something I'll take.
And that's what I think.
I'm just saying, I think optically it looks terrible for us as a board to just not discuss the idea of deploying $1 million or whatever the number is, regardless of aid. And then also at the same time, talk about closing that building down. And frankly, I wasn't smart enough to think about it all by myself. It was broad as a concern, so I'm just raising it so that we're all mindful of some of the chatter.
It is a very valid concern. You know, it should have been brought up, 4 months ago, right? That's the issue.
Cool. 4 months ago.
4 months ago, we didn't put a plan in front
Wasn't
of
here
it.
4 months ago.
I understand,
It
but,
should have
you
been
know,
done 10 years ago.
Correct.
That's really the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, then we wouldn't be having this.
That's correct.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything to pull from the consent agenda?
No.
No? I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. The second? All in favor? We do have 2 donations this evening. The first one being the Office of Special Education has received donations in the amount of $150 to be utilized to pay for partial summer camp funding for students with significant handicap and conditions. And that's from the Barbara Katzenstein Scholarship Fund. And the second donation, the district has received a donation in the amount of $6,238.72 from the Hendrick Hudson Elementary PTA for a Gaga ball pit for the Furnace Woods Elementary School.
Yeah.
That's super cool. And I have a motion to approve the donations. May I have a second? All in favor? Okay, we're cruising.
So can we just say what a Gaga ball pit is? Because I asked, but not everyone knows.
How do you,
It's like a big wooden hexagon
and you,
and the kids will play in it.
Like giant balls, right? Not like.
No, the big
No,
balls
it's
is like,
square
no,
balls.
it's
Foam balls.
almost like box balls, I think.
you have to hit it, right, into like
It's a
certain
4
spots?
square ball and it's a kind of like a tag,
Oh.
dodgeball and a pen kind of thing.
Okay, superintendent's report.
We're ready to have some technology conversations this evening. Let me by way of introduction, what has come up a number of times in speaking with Benita, our director of technology, and our conversations around technology in general. There were a number of, I don't want to take the thunder away from our presentation, but I want you to understand something. There are a number of things that come up that affect the district, affect the students, affect anyone using our technology. And so I thought it would be good to have this conversation now as we move forward and start a new school year where there will be a couple of other things that will be needed to be done. So this is one of several, it's sort of the introductory piece to what may follow over the months to come. So with that, I'm going to ask Benita to give the presentation.
Right, thank you so much. So thank you for allowing me to come up, and I think it's the second time this year, so. I'm concentrating more on just some of the technology updates to be done. I kind of gave a very high level at the board meeting when we did the budget presentation, but I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth. The 4 areas that I'm gonna concentrate on is some of the highlights, compliance issues, not issues, but compliance things we're working on, computer science standards that the New York State has adopted, and some things to look forward to. So starting with highlights. I always start with the help desk tickets. I know sometimes it's just numbers. I put up a 4-year look of the help desk queue, and you can see, but in 22-23, you see 2 more queues being added, like printer support and student support. So we started our student program at the high school, which is working really good. I wish Peter was here. He's one of our student health workers in the student health desk program. That's housed as captain's quarters, ran by Christina Field, Lauren Price, through the Thaler program, which is working out really great. You can see that 80 help desk tickets this December was closed by our student help desk workers. We also started to pinpoint printer support because a lot of times tickets come into our queue for printers. We have an outside vendor that does printer support, so I just wanted to point that out, how many printer support tickets are out there. So that's a new queue that we have completed. So on the next slide, I wanted to point out is how we start the school year off. So I know it came in November of 2021. That was my first year here. And I came into almost 150 tickets in November. And I remember asking the tech support,
while I was at the other district, send me a snapshot of your help desk queue, because you can really tell a lot by the help desk queue. And when they sent it to me, I said, you got a problem. Right, so we started addressing some of those issues, and one of the top problems that I came into the district, and I have to tell the story to really understand. Jeremy was in my office last week or this week sometime, and I told him about that because when I came to the district and I wanted to do computer-based testing, and I have done this for the last 8 years in my 2 other districts, and everybody told me, internet doesn't work here, Wi-Fi doesn't work here. And I said, what are you talking about? We just refreshed our Wi-Fi in the district. And sure enough, when you look at the help desk ticket, I was counting about 30 to 35 tickets, mostly from the middle school students on Wi-Fi issues. They were getting kicked off the Wi-Fi. And I told the principal, Anicia, and at the time, John Owens, send out every time somebody gets picked up, I want you to fill out this form that basically says who's the student, male, female, which grade level, so I can start to create a pattern what's going on. And we did. It was mostly our 6th grade boys. Then I said, we need to figure out what are they doing to get kicked off, right? So we started going into our firewall and said, okay, before we fix the problem, we know how to fix the problem as IT support. Before we fix the problem, I want to go to where it says, where were you before you got kicked out? They were downloading an app, basically saying, take my Chromebook off the network. So of course, our firewall says, you're not supposed to do that. Your device is getting quarantined for 8 hours. That's our rule. So immediately I realized the kids are doing something that they're not supposed to, but also we're not following Law 2D, which basically says you're not allowed to have students go on apps that are not supported and known by the district. So they were able to go to Chrome Web Store, download any apps you want. So immediately we were able to bring that help us down to like 35 tickets a day. So that is kind of what I'm trying to show here. That's just one example of some of the things that we do. You can see September 15th, and we started the school year. Last year was like 221 tickets. The numbers have gone up, the number of devices we support. But you can see September 15th of this year, our help desk queue was around 87 tickets, which is pretty normal for the beginning of school year. So the next slide, I wanted to talk about some of the optimization that we've done to our workflow. Everything goes through the help desk now. So you see the help desk count being high because of the number of tickets. Everything goes through the help desk queue right now. So, for example, I had 6 people who left in 1 year from HHCSD. That affects when somebody emails them directly, letting them know, hey, I need to work on these 5 different things. When they leave, we know nothing about that. So we have that happen quite a bit when people are leaving. They were getting emails directly to their email saying to fix things. It was never going to the help desk ticket. So now everything goes through the help desk ticket. We created the printer queue, the student help desk queue, any preventive maintenance, network alerts, room alerts in our classes. All of that goes to the help desk as an automated alert. So it's not just going to my phone when like BB lost power today. So I get an alert basically saying you're on UPS backup right now on your switches. Well, that also goes to our help desk because it's not just coming to my phone. What if I'm not here? I can't do anything. It's going. So there's 6 people looking at that help desk queue. We created the software request queue that's really new this year because of Law 2D. Because we have students, again, New York State Law 2D basically saying any student PII information that's resides in the district system, we need to go through the vendor, get them signed up on our data privacy and security and the third-party contract, even if it is a free system. So we created a software request, not just a,
I just want to follow along, and I'm not good with acronyms. PII.
personally identifiable information, I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
So, so anything that comes through that teachers, a lot of times teachers go to a workshop and really see a great thing. And especially during COVID, a lot of things were free. Vendors were giving out all kinds of free membership. But when you click on that, it's I accept, right? If it's single sign-on through Google, but you're saying I accept, you're taking personal responsibility of whatever you're putting in there. And if breach happens, that's solely on that teacher. And I usually say, don't take that chance, right? Let us know that you want to use the program. Let us go through the LR 2D compliance. They have the vendor sign up. And a lot of cases, they don't want to sign up, and I go through a legal to review what they're sending me because I'm not a legal person. So they look at that and then we come back and let the teacher who requested that software to say, okay, you can now use it, and we open it up in our system. We done a lot of automation this year. Most or all of our systems go through CrossLink. There's a screenshot of that later. So everything is rostered, single sign-on through CrossLink. If you did have a breach that happened on passwords, we can immediately change our network password. That changes to all the other systems as well. We are right now finished as of March, the student account. When the student comes into the district, we get audited all the time. Auditors hate when we have an account for a student that left or a staff that left. We always get written up for that. So when a student comes into the district now, when they're done the registration, it automatically creates an account for them. When they leave, they also get deactivated. Same thing, right now we're working on staff accounts, we're not there yet. Future improvements, we are working on a new website, as Strategic Plan 3 calls for it. We have an outside web developer that takes care of any content management updates and things like that. People email directly to that person, and sometimes I get emails saying I don't have access to that site anymore. And when I follow up, I say, okay, when did this change happen? There's no documentation to say who requested the change or how that change happened. So we're gonna do the same thing we've done with Printer Queue. We'll do a website queue where you can submit tickets, and then we can route it. I can approve it of the change, and then route it to the person that needs to do the work. Also, a dashboard is something that we're on a demo of a dashboard of all the things that I've been through as state auditor before. My previous district, we went through a year of state auditing on technology, and I would not wish that on anybody. And when we did get audited, I learned a lot. What are they looking for? What are the kind of things that flags them for different things? So we have that questionnaire, and EduTech has that questionnaire now, and they do have a developer who's working on some of those high level things that we can see it on the dashboard all the time. So when I open up the dashboard, it will always give me a flag. Oh, you have too many deactive staff in your system, for example. You have to go and correct that. So that dashboard is something that we're working on as well. And the next slide, I just want to say, other than just doing all these things, we had some fun. So we had STEAM Career Day at Furnace Woods, which was a huge success. Kids really loved it. I have a couple of minutes of the video, if you guys don't mind watching it, for the STEAM Innovation Day on a Saturday. Some of you did attend that.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because
what is your name, sir?
Mr. Comfort.
Mr. Comfort. How did you come to see that process?
I came to promote some of the science courses in high school and to talk to parents and community members about opportunities we have in science research and Project Lead the Way.
Well, I should probably warn you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel.
What do you learn? Okay, got it.
On the learning about
Type in there, they'll say something different.
Really great. We had a lot of students show up and we did stop motion play. And the kids made really cool videos and we sent them home with kids, but we're going to post them on the school website too because they had a lot of fun moving videos basically. So yeah, and I want to say thank you to my high school students that helped me too. We had a lot of helpers too.
Bring me down, I said. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. The love is too high. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
So that was a very fun day. I think we had almost over 200 people that came to that event, and 9 o'clock I was freaking out, telling Carmen, oh no, nobody's gonna join. But we did ended up having such a great day. So thanks to our teachers and wonderful students that helped. We also did Live from Model Schools. Model Schools is a program that we started joining last year, which basically represents all the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center, that region. And Paul and Logan was nice enough to, because I saw what they did in their classroom and I said, you guys have to tell the world what you guys do here. So we got Leslie from the RIC and Kelly who hosted that event for us, and it is live on Model Schools. And from that event, they got picked to present at the Lyric Edith Macy's Conference Center Tech Expo last May 23rd. And I've been getting a lot of feedback, next slide, feedback from that through Twitter and things like that. So it was tweeted out what they did and their classes and stuff like that. So we're getting some press out there about Hen Hud. When I applied for a job here, people were like, where's Hen Hud? So now people are starting to see, you know, where Hen Hud is and what our teachers do. So let's get to compliance. Compliance, oh, I got the most important part, our student help desk. So we started a student help desk through the Sailor program. Christina Gill and Lauren Price took charge in it at the very beginning. And we have both the Sailor students and our few of the students that are going to be working as summer interns. You can see Joey, actually, Liz's son, Joey actually interned for us over 2 years. He wrote that comment. I usually ask them when they leave, give me what you learned, you know, what was your experience? And Peter Kochek is actually working in the student help desk right now. He gets community service hours for working in the student help desk, and then we recruit them during the summer. So for summer internship positions. So I just finished interviewing few wonderful students. I'm blown away by their resume. I keep telling my son, what is going on with you? His resumes are amazing. So Peter is one of them. So he did give us, we're going to put together a story for our website that Karen is working on it with me. Compliance. So compliance is something that we all have to do because New York State loves their compliances. MLAW 2D requirement came up 2-3 years ago, I think 2020. It basically is protecting the personally identifiable information for our students. Basically it says the data needs to be protected. And also we need to know what systems, parents have the right to know what systems their student data is in. There's a policy around it on our policy documents. NIST cybersecurity is a huge part of it. It has one slide in there, but it's a lot involved in that part. Third-party contracts, the annual employee training that we have to do, the parent complaint procedure, if a breach did happen, they can complain to us about, submit a complaint form to us, so we can investigate. The incident reporting and notification, and the data protection officer, which right now is me. So on the next slide, it talks about what are the things that are currently on our website that's already done. And the next, I won't read through all of that. And the next slide basically is there's a technology approved list on our website. One of the things that I have done is I create a category so we can say if it goes through BOCES, they kind of pay for that a lot. When we sign a contract with them, they take on that a lot to the contracts for the district, all the districts who are participating in that. The ones that filter for district is district direct paid through the vendor, and there's a lot of free systems too. So where you see that PDF is the contract that we get signed by the vendor on a yearly basis. And these are some of this is just Furnacewood School. I just grabbed a screenshot from one of the teachers. These are all the systems that we use. You can see keyboarding without tears just got launched last week. That's also on there. So all the systems that we have single sign-on for the teachers and the students, and also rostered through the system. The next slide is the NIST framework. So if you're the National Institute of Standards and Technology have their the framework around what are the things that we have to do. Each one of those areas, how do you identify, how do you protect your network, your data, how do you detect something that's going wrong? How do you respond to it, and how do you recover from it? So on the next slide, I put together just one slide of all the things that we have. Anything that you see in black lettering, it's kind of hard to see the blue, but the black lettering is what we are already doing at this point in each one of those areas. And there's a few things that are identified there that we will be looking at for next school year to start adopting, because one of the budget things that I said is to work on the NIST framework. So I just wanted to give you an update of what we have done so far. So as Dennis mentioned at the very beginning, we are required to have an acceptable use policy for our staff and our students to sign off as new students come in, new staff comes in. And the code of conduct is something that you have to sign up on a yearly basis for the parents and the students. Currently, we don't do that. I'm working on a procedure that over the summer, we'll have that sent out through email so parents can sign up on it. And we'll let them know if they don't sign up on all that information, they really can't have access to the computer network and systems in the district. So we'll put like a deadline, maybe the first week of school. If they haven't turned that in by that time, then those accesses would be revoked. So we want to get that information out as much as early as possible to parents and also to our staff to say you have to complete this information before we can give you access to our network. Also, a policy review in addition, I have looked at policies and it's really small, but I've been looking at other school districts what policies they have around technology. And we're lacking quite a bit of those policies, or the ones we have are very old. So you have the school year next to the ones at the bottom, right? Are our policies that are currently on our site. And you can see a lot of them are older, like 2005, that's pretty old for technology policies, right? 2017. So we do, the one that's most up to date is the policy 8635 around data privacy and security, because that came in 2020. So that's up to date. We only have like 4 other policies around technology. We don't have a filtering policy, we don't have an internet monitoring policy. Those are all things that we are required to have because of we get E-rate funding. In order to get E-rate funding, we need to have a filtering system, we need to have a rule around filtering. So I'm gonna work with Erica or other board members who are involved with policy to get, review some of the policies and also to adapt some policies and update some policies in the new year. Computer science standards, I'm just gonna have one slide that shows what are the computer science standards was adopted to 2020, I believe. By 2024, September 2024, we're supposed to be starting implementation of the computer science standards. All this time was awareness phase. I tried my best to do that awareness. I think we still have a lot of awareness to do. You saw the Innovation Day, there's a lot of STEAM work that are being done. Those are the 5 areas that New York State has identified that are all of our students, K-12, need to have. So like impacts of computing for a kindergarten could be like, what's the difference between mailing something versus text messaging, right? That could be very simple, or cybersecurity could be how do you protect your password, right? So when you get to the high school level, how does that work? Like, what is the importance? Maybe you can write a paper about, what is the requirement for a password? I just changed the password requirement for a district to, in this framework standard, why is the reason behind it? So each one of those areas has substandards identified under each grade level that we need to address. So next year, during the budget time, I asked for a full-time person from model schools who can work with our teachers to take a look at our curriculum to enrich and enhance, not replace anything, but enrich and enhance some of the lessons to include some of those computer science standards in there. And looking forward, I already touched up on a lot of things that we're going to be doing. Couple of things that I wanted to address here were the Lyric Lower Hudson Regional Information Center collaboration IT model. So right now our EduTech is the only IT consultant that we have. I'm very close to last 18 years working with BOCES. The BRIC is the BOCES. And we get one person. I'm eliminating one EduTech and adding one person through the BOCES to really work with our network. Maybe it's always good to have in technology, how do other people do things? So we're gonna have that person work with us, and that also involves a lot of the things that we were going direct with the vendors, like our Google license, we buy it direct through Google. We have, Jamf license for managing our Apple environment that we directly buy through Jamf. All of this, we can go through BOCES and get a 40% aid on it too. And the person that's coming in is also 40% aidable. The hardware purchases that we do, I just finished about $550,000 for next year hardware purchases. All of that is aidable at 40%. So that's a great thing that we would be looking forward to for next year.
I just want to point out one of the things we were attempting to do in this process of the budget. Now that as Vanita's been on top of this, so I want to give her credit too. That was a big move. So we were spending the money and not getting state aid by putting it through the BOCES program and spending probably upwards of 7 if you add the 550 plus the person plus, would that be 7, 8? Where are we at?
Oh, the dollar amount?
Yeah.
We're after everything added, probably close to 750.
All right, and then 40% aid, which we would have been spending anyway, but now we're getting 40% back again by just moving things through BOCES, which has been an attempt of what I've been trying to do since I got here, or getting people to think that way. If the service is replicable through BOCES, then we get the aid. So why not make the move? And Bernita was able to do that today, this year.
And the other thing on there is the centralization of copiers and printers. So last Friday, I did come here to walk through the high school to identify areas where we have printers, like those two printers that are sitting there together. You know, we can eliminate one, put it somewhere else, like centralizing it. So each wing here, some of the classrooms have a printer where teachers print to. High school is not to that. Compared to middle school, we have printers in every single classroom. So one of the things I keep telling the principals is, you know, when we came back from COVID, we had Google licenses, Schoology, we gave one-to-one laptops to teachers, one-to-one Chromebooks to students. We need to cut back on printing. I hate printing. So that's in the classrooms, you do need printing, but at the same time, you don't need one per classroom. So my goal is to have in each wing, every teacher have access to at least a printer and a copier that they can get to. We do have enough copiers here. So this summer, the project is to centralize the printing at the high school. Strategic Plan 3, we have two things that will be coming on. We just signed a contract with automated messaging system. We had a group of people who demoed 3 different systems, and we chose the system. Right now, we have 3 different things that we use for communication, but they're not all doing what we needed to do. So this automated messaging system that we demoed, it's useful for the teachers, the administrators to outreach to the community, and for, you know, and our parent students. And it comes with also an app. So if parents are used to, they don't want to go to the website to look, they can download an app and get notification from the school, sign important messages and things like that. So we would be rolling that out pretty soon, over the summer. The new district website is, we're migrating to a new site. That was something that I had identified when I came in, and of course, Strategic Plan 3 also identified that as a major issue. We're just in the queue for that migration, so we haven't had our kickoff meeting yet. I will be involving team members from Strategic Plan 3 to be part of that, and probably even some of the students and other stakeholders to be part of that district website design, with the hope to have it launched November, December timeframe. And I get asked every year for the technology replacement cycle, like 5-year cycle, what are we doing? So that's just a glimpse of just what we're doing with Chromebooks, but I have that for basically anything starting with last year spending. So you can see what is our spending rather than 1 year spending 400, 1 year spending 600, trying to make that release consistent across, because the year that I came in, we did a major network update. It was over almost $750,000 to $800,000. We could have done that more managed rather than a huge, because I'm never gonna, that was a lot of money that we got from the state to do that work. So we probably won't get that money again, right? So we're trying to get to a cycle that, each year, you're gonna spend 500. Hopefully, technology devices are insane on pricing going up these days. So considering that things are going to be a 10% increase or whatever, that's the technology cycle. I have that for if anybody wanted to see it for more of a district-wide purchase program. So our 5th graders right now, over the last week, our engineers actually put Chromebook covers on them for the 5th grade devices that are going home over the summer. I'm really crossing my fingers. So first time we're sending Chromebooks home. I'm gonna send out an email about Chromebook Care, and please put them in the top shelf. Don't give it to them for the summer, and just give it to them because we don't have a place to house them here. And that's when we got rid of all those Chromebook cards, we don't have a place to house them for all these students. So our 5th graders moving up, they will keep that Chromebook because we bought them brand new last year, and they have a 4-year warranty on them. So they will keep it until 8th grade. And that is it. So if you have any questions.
I think you're gonna ask all the questions.
Go ahead, and I will.
I was just wondering if the staff used a two-step verification process for Google accounts?
So multi-factor authentication was actually one in the blue, on one of those NIST framework slides. Over the summer, the administrators will move to a MFA. Teachers, not yet. That's the only things.
Next year, teachers?
I'm hoping for it next year. I know it's a delicate, step we have to take. The districts who have taken it, we've been getting advice from them, how they did it and managed it, because you do have to get a text message through your phone. You have to be, data rates may be applied, so there's a lot involved in that.
Can I suggest something else? You can get the, something like an RSA token
Yeah,
instead, so they don't have to use their own personal devices. Or you can give them an option to put a soft token on their phone, so they put in their own codes, right? So it doesn't have to be usage of their phone unless it's by choice.
so we did look at some of those options as well, that district will have to purchase.
Yeah.
And it is, cost associated to those tokens too, and if they lose it, it's another, So we do really have to plan the teacher. I'm more confident in the administrators getting, because the penetration testing that we did, we finished that. The suggestions came back, some of our passwords were compromised. They were able to get, and that's why I changed the passwords to 14 characters, and you only have to change it once a year, but it's a stronger password. So it was the administrative password that got compromised. So I do want to make sure that at least our administrators who has the most information is going to be on MFA by summer.
So if anybody wants that password, they need to check under the keyboard for stickies, and you check on the monitor for stickies.
I got pictures.
I'm just saying, right, making it that much longer, someone's gonna write it down and put it right there.
Most of the passwords that they got compromised is HHCSD. So we blocked the HHCSD. The other one was summer 2023, fall 2023, like every 90 days when they replace it, it's the season. I didn't realize that was so popular, but all of those are blocked right now through Active Directory. You cannot use those passwords.
There's no complexity requirement for a password?
Well, we did it, now we do. We do have the complexity requirement, and yes, teachers don't like that. I mean, staff in general do not like the 14 characters. But the compromise was you don't have to change it every 90 days. It's 1 year now.
But no special character requirement?
Special character, yeah.
Special characters, upper lowercase.
Uppercase, lowercase, special character.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Actually, so the automated messaging system, is that explain what that is?
So currently we have messaging going out through internet cameras for, the delays and things like that. You can only reach our parents and students and staff, right? It's only who's in the system. Karen, our community outreach, we have something called constant contact through BOCES that outreach out to over 3,000 parents. We can't do that through internet cameras. Now we have two systems. The third one is eye contact for PTA users. So that's 3 systems we use, and still, I know Lisa's here, Lisa had approached me before about guidance, being able to use Remind as their program, which is the 2-way. So it's not just one way sending out the message, but also receiving the messages. So teachers use the messaging from the classroom for their roster, sending out messages, but you can't receive it. So the automated messaging system that I'm looking at, it basically answers all of that. We had a committee that was, a group that was demoing the 3 systems. So that takes care of all the groups being able to use the system for whether you're a parent, student, or a community member, or a staff in the system, you can still use the system to reach them. And they all
come in multiple languages, or how does that?
Yes, so it does come in multiple languages. I think, can't remember, it's 5 or 12, but I have it down. So You can translate in different languages, and you have the app. And they also have the two-way messaging for teachers, which we don't have right now. So they would be able to be just finished the integration through ClassLink for the system. So we're right now ready to start training people because we have to cut out of the Infinite Canvas messaging system. Because it's counting on that money to switch to this one.
Thank you.
Okay, just a few things. First, thank you very much. This is absolutely great. We should do this more often, right? Twice a year, at least. I know you don't want to, but I love it. I think it's great for the community too. It's fantastic. We are very lucky to have you. I really think you do a great job. Thank you on the policies, because I've been asking for that for a long time too. We haven't really talked about it in policy because it just didn't come up. It was something I asked Joe about for years, so I'm glad this is coming up that, we're coming up on new tech policies. When it comes to quantum computing and AI and all the stuff that you talked about that the students need to learn, I just want to make sure that we're staying up to date, because even what we have up there is kind of behind the curve. So I'm really hoping that we can think about, when quantum computing becomes more of a reality, which is probably in the next year or two, security is going to be completely different, right? And AI is going to be completely different because quantum computing is just going to leapfrog everything. You talk a lot about the help desk tickets, and how do you correlate larger incidents based on help desk tickets? So for example, there's an attack on the system and it's starting to percolate as help desk tickets. So what do you do to correlate those help desk tickets into potential bigger incidents? Like how do we have level 1, 2, 3 incidents? How does it work?
So we do have levels in the system. I do caution teachers and people to use emergency as true, you're down, you're completely down. We do have CISA is a cybersecurity network that state federal has. And we just signed up for like vulnerability scanning on our system every month. So it's a free scanning, basically the external pen testing without paying for it. It was just a long wait, but we just finally got them to, include us in that. So that comes into our help desk. That is, if there's a report from the CISA, I usually flag it as a high priority. Sometimes the report doesn't have anything. I still automatically comes in as a high priority on those network alerts over the weekend. Sometimes we get those room alerts because one of the classes might be really hot, and because power went down somewhere and then, the classes are getting hot. So I would contact, Anthony, and I'll say, Anthony, who's doing the checks on the system, you need to leave the, classes doors, open, like to ventilate a little bit. So some of those closet tickets do come in high priority. We have DDoS through our both ISPs. This year we were lucky enough to get a redundant ISP now. So we just finished that work too. So if there's something that happens to our first light, which is our predominant ISP, it can automatically fail over to the light path. So those all already have DDoS like that, which is denial of
Denial of service.
Distributed
Denial of service.
Distributed denial of service, yeah.
That's how it is.
So we do have those. So when those comes in, it is coming in as a very high priority too.
That's great. That's good to hear. Another question I had was around open source analysis. So do we have any applications in-house or even at third parties that use open source? Because if you remember the Log4j issue, right, it was all about open source. So is there anything that we use as part of the vulnerability scanning?
So we do have the vulnerability, but we don't really have, because of the LA2D and PII information that New York State puts us under. A lot of the things that we use are directly with the vendor. That is not really an open source that we use. The open source that we use is extensions to Google. right? Every once in a while, there's like a extension that teachers really like. We try our best because Google doesn't allow us to, they don't commit to anything that's open source. You know, they won't sign up on anything, right? So we have to go directly to the vendor, and a lot of times they don't. At that point, we're kind of taking a chance of adding that. Then you have to kind of weigh in, you know, is it really something that we can take a chance in, right? Like, is it more beneficial to have this, or like just tell the teacher, no, you're not using it? We do have some open sources that are attached to as extensions that we have in the system, but we do keep a close eye on, like, because they constantly update things on it.
And you said you were gonna be locking down the store anyway, right?
So-
Google Play is gonna be locked down.
Google Store is closed down for students for sure.
So all of Google Play, like you can't get anything off, okay,
They can't download anything to the district device.
okay, that's great.
Only what we push out to the app. The other thing we did that you would be happy about is, a lot of times we did a Google audit. So part of the Google audit, it's always a great, because Google changes things all the time. So I recommend doing, it's expensive, but doing a Google audit every 2 years. So we did a Google audit this year. A lot of our systems have, you know, when you go to that single sign-on, log in with Google, right? A lot of times teachers and staff log in with their Henhood Schools account. So we changed that where you're only allowed to have that. I know Enrique had a problem with submitting a document on Adobe because we locked down that specific Adobe extension, so he couldn't log in with his Google credential to do it, and then we allowed it because Adobe is allowed and signed up on our Edload2D. So we had few people who contacted us and say, hey, we used to use it. Couple of them, because they're currently using instructionally, we said, we're gonna open it up for this year, but we're closing it back up, so you have to find another solution for it. So that's also tied down right now.
It's great that you're being practical about that too, because instead of just
I
saying,
don't wanna over tie down things, but also be flexible enough that teachers are able to teach and, you know, carry on the instruction, so.
that's great. So another question, you mentioned about ClassLink and that being single sign-on, so I assume some sort of AD, LDAP.
So, yeah, so there's different versions for their single sign-on. One is LDAP, one is form post extension, one is single sign-on through Google. So there's, I forgot the fourth one, but there's 4 types of single sign-on they allow. Depends on the vendor and what they allow. So certain vendors would say, we only do LDAP, right? We only do, certain vendors would say like automated messaging system. I couldn't do an integration through ClassLink to get their data out there. It's through SFTP, right? So there's some vendors that we don't be integrated with transportation system. We're getting a new cloud-based transportation system. Now our transportation system will talk to our student information system.
Okay,
So that's through a different, you know, SFTP. So
okay. So with that, my question was, does that single sign-on trickle down to network devices, or are you air gapping their network devices from ClassLink?
So most of our devices are all, right, Chromebooks, right? This is a very Chrome predominant, but teachers do have laptops, but it's all web-based system.
But I mean, network devices like, you know, if you have Cisco routers, or if you have
Oh, no.
firewall, if you have. right,
Yeah,
so
no
network devices.
SSO on any of those things. no.
Okay, so but do you use Radius or anything? Do you have separate sign-on?
We do have a separate sign and that's a big audit fail, like, so when they
Okay.
do the audit, we are supposed to have to change our passwords. And our password requirements are very different for admins, and it's different on each one.
That's really my question,
Yeah.
because that seems to be the biggest security issue, right? If we're gonna go down it's not gonna be because of the student or an education system. It's gonna be because the back end isn't secured properly.
Yeah.
So I wanna make sure that we're getting MFA, that we're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
maybe Radius, maybe something else, so that we're doing much better on the back end.
All the admin passwords have been on MFA even before I was here, so that's
Okay.
one thing I didn't even do. I mean, mine is on an MFA since I've been here. But all of our 8 admin accounts are all MFA and it changes. So nobody's sharing passwords and the password requirements are not just complexity, like it's really needs to be random enough that nobody's able to guess it.
And in the event that somebody does something, are you able to terminate them off those devices? In other words, do we have a way to manage the administrators?
Yeah, so any time a password for an administrator changes, even like today, when it changes, all the administrators get an alert saying so change their password.
Yeah.
So that alert is also coming to us. If somebody left, we can immediately get them off at the very highest level and they are taken out of all the other network systems, yeah.
Great. So I'm gonna offer this up. So come July 1st, when I'm done with my term, I am a former IT auditor. I am more than happy to help you out. I could be like, your IRS guy that does your taxes for you. Right? So I'm just putting that out there. One of the things I thought about is you talked about with the student internship. Why not offer them up A+ certification? If they're already doing help desk work,
Yeah,
get them A+ certification, start them off on an early career.
so
Right?
we're not a Microsoft district, but we do have Microsoft licenses. And when I worked at Carmel, our business department actually did A+ certification
Okay.
as a class. So that's definitely something on my mind. And actually Google is doing certifications now
Right.
too. So,
Something to get them some sort of professional credential for doing this, I
yeah,
think would be absolutely fantastic. And we should pay for that,
yeah,
right? If we can.
yeah, those are expensive, but yes, definitely.
Well, then, for how many students? 2, 3
Two.
students?
Well, actually,
Yeah, they gotta
they have
pass
to
the
pass
test.
the test, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do, that number is growing, the number of kids who are interested, because the word is getting out. All I can get is 4 right now, for summer interns. They work Monday through Thursday to 4, and I give them Fridays off, so I have 4 who's gonna be working for me then this summer.
Great.
Plus the sailor students who will be working for me for free.
All right. I've only got a couple more things that are just more comments than questions. So the first is, if we are concerned about PII and breaches, we should be considering using, at least having on reserve, a third party, like a law firm or some, privacy incident firm that could help send out notices and, help us manage a situation where in the event if we have a privacy incident, we've got somebody on the reserve ready to go for us.
So we do have cybersecurity insurance that we have through the districts.
Yeah, so the insurance might pay for somebody like that to help us. But if we have a breach where you've lost student data or parent data, any PII, you're gonna have to send out notices. You're gonna have to give your credit monitoring for a certain amount of time. So the insurance will cover the cost of that, but you have to have somebody to call to actually help out with that.
So I was in my other district, we had Pearson Ainsworth Plus program, and as soon as I came into the district, the first thing that happened was a breach. And it was a breach on an older system, like the older version of the system that they sunsetted, but they never unplugged from the network. So we had over 3,000 letters we had to send out. And that was the district, I mean, Pearson covers the cost and they offered 1-year credit monitoring for everybody.
So they did it.
They did it, they're required to, so that's part of the LL 2D
Right.
requirements for the vendors that they're signing off. When a breach happens, they cover the cost. But the thing is, labor is still us. And
Yeah.
all those phone calls from parents who say, what does this mean? All comes back to the district.
Great. So the other comments, just NIST is focusing a lot more on resilience. So I would just, caution you on that area to include resilience in the pillars. And you talked about the compliance system for sign off for parents. Is that workflow for the parents sign off, is that manual or is that a workflow system where they'll go in and sign off electronically versus sending some sort of manual form?
So we actually have a system that I bought this year, which was not, it was for the Chromebook responsibility. So we had a system that we used for, in my other district, for the parents have to submit every morning for COVID validation, right? Then we get a report saying who didn't submit it. So it's basically a form that gets sent out every morning for people to submit, and then we get a response. So it was an automated system. We just created the form. So we used that for Chromebook responsibility this year for parents to sign up on it. We used the same form for creating a new form for the code of contact. So that gets sent to the parents and it's going to keep annoying them until they sign up on it. And then when it comes to end of summer, each building secretaries will have a list of who didn't submit it so they can come.
And it's multi-language?
It's right now English and Spanish. There's a drop down at the very top that says English or Spanish. Unfortunately, I have to translate it, but it gives you both of those options.
It would be great if we could get Russian or one of the forms of Chinese too. There.
Yeah, maybe we can give them whatever we want. Right now, it's just English and Spanish that the Chromebook responsibility, but we can definitely translate.
Thank you. And my last comment is I can't wait to not get to read the document calls in the morning from the AMS.
Well, I'm sorry.
We used to get calls like at 4:30 in the morning for, school being canceled, whatever the case was, and it would be the same call 3 times at 4:30 in the morning. So I'm looking forward to the AMS. Thank you.
The automated system. Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm just gonna say thanks. It's nice to hear someone have like a mastery of their subject and also know how to apply it in an educational setting. Corey just put you through the ringer and not in a bad way, right? But I mean, there's a lot of questions there that are more than superficial inquiries. And to understand how to relate all of that to an educational environment as well. I'm lucky, I'm grateful that we have you heading out on us. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We're moving on.
You want me to do a few things? Yes, okay.
The update from the meeting that you had.
Thank you for reminding that. What we were discussing was I'm also a member of the decommissioning of Indian Point, and I've had a meeting. Formally, there's another one coming up within a month. But with that, you may recall in earlier communications that there was money available to the district for monitoring. And what we wanted to do is get a baseline, particularly at BV. And then we found that money was being used by the commission for something else. So first thing I asked for was to get it reinstated. And what they did was reinstate it. So we had reported to the board that we did get the $500,000 back. And the contract came through just recently. Is that our attorney's office ready to sign so that we'll have the money on hand. In the meantime, since I arrived, I've been looking at ways to create a monitoring system for our buildings in order to set up something separate from what's going on at Indian Point so that we would maintain the control of it. And the monitoring of it would be, well, through us, but not through the state or any other organization that was connected to Indian Point, so that we had our own independent way of doing it. And that meeting went well. We had a report from a vendor that I was working with. And I believe we will have some quotes on that particular, it's really pretty proprietary. So it's probably one vendor that's going to be able to do this because it was really by a very high level. And I'm not allowed to say certain things in public because it's confidential, so I won't. But at any rate, it's something that we were very impressed with, and we will have more to report on it. Hopefully we'll be able to implement that shortly so that whatever we do would be in place prior to any decommissioning, which is actually deconstructing the buildings. So anything that is related to the domes and any of the radiation would be able to monitor that. So that's ready to go shortly, and the board will be getting more information and the public will get more on that as soon as we're there.
So that was an incredibly impressive.
I knew Jeremy was there.
That was an incredibly impressive presentation, and you brought in probably best in class operators for that. If anyone is concerned about what's the monitoring may or may not look like, I don't think that anyone would select a better provider than the one that gave the presentation. And their resume is ridiculously impressive.
Thank you.
The only other one I want to mention was, I just want to make sure that the substitute thing was under the personnel, professional.
Fiscal.
I just want to mention this so that the public picks this up. We've been dealing with the issue since COVID about substitutes and having coverage for our teachers when they're absent. So we're trying to hit it from multiple ways because, to be honest with you, it runs our principals ragged all day long, trying to cover if there are a number of teachers out and then there were no substitutes. So there's ways to try to do that. What I'm interested in one way is to get it covered, but the most important thing was to try to continue some semblance of instruction so that the students don't lose seat time and with the particular class when a teacher is out. So what we did tonight, it was one of the items, I want to say that it was item, I forget where it was. 5.1. 5.1, thank you. 4.1. 4.1.
5.4.
What is it? 5.4. Yeah. So what it basically did is increased our substitute rate for the day up to $175 per day and $200 a day for a certified person. So people ask, what it means is that in the state of New York, and we usually ask in our district, we have a policy to have people with a college degree. So if you have a college degree and you're interested, it's $175 a day. If you have a college degree and you have your certification, it'll be $200 a day. And then we would put another little kicker in there because it did work in my previous district and it's still going well there. And that is we'll increase it by $25 a day. So it could be $200 or $225 a day. If you would be willing to give us a 10-day commitment and the district needs a person for 10 days. So it's much easier to do at the elementary level because at the elementary level, we might run 1 or 2 people absent a day. So it doesn't mean it's the same teacher, but if that building would utilize that person as the one person for that 10-day period, then they're not calling in all the time and we're not reaching out every day to try to find a substitute. We know that that person will be arriving at the door and be able to have an assignment given to them for a 10-day period. We will continue to monitor this. I'm looking at testing it over the next 3 or 4 weeks. We had brainstormed some ideas to do a session to bring people in and screen them so that we can approve them and get them put on our list. And then hopefully we beat our neighbors to the punch and we will attract more people here than anywhere else. And so that we will solve our substitute problem. So I just wanted to mention it. I'll make sure there's a press release going out and we'll try to solicit people to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions on? Committee reports? I know we have, yeah. So Jeremy and I were at the safety committee meeting on May 18th. We started off brainstorming ideas to get more safety training for teachers. We know professional development time is a precious limited resource. So with some of the teachers and administrators at the table, trying to figure out how we can get groups of teachers available for blocks of time to bring them up to speed on more state-of-the-art safety training. So I don't think we came to any decisions, but it was a good discussion about how we can make more time available for this important topic. We've talked about this before, but the collaborative training where we're using police and EMS and the school so that when if there isn't an emergency, that those people, the first responders, are familiar with our buildings. And then the last thing that we were talking about before I had to leave for a track meet was the conversation about the anonymous alert system. So how we can make our existing system more robust, getting more after school and weekend coverage. What are the best practices? What are other districts doing? And again, it was brainstorming. It was the start of hopefully a more
robust, yeah, for sure. An opportunity to have a more robust anonymous alert system so that
Yeah, and then how we are going to talk about the need for age appropriate education, so that when students see something, they know what something is, and how we can use either the SROs or guidance to make those age appropriate messaging in the classroom, so that the students are not only available or aware of what the program is, but what the type of incidents that they should be, which is an appropriate incident to report, and parents too. So hopefully we'll have more for that developed over the summer that we can roll out in the fall with some better, bigger plans.
And then also conversation around a policy that is used by most districts, so that we have a national standard for our threat assessment and safety plans, something along the lines of the CSTAC method. And then there was also a conversation about voting day, because we're using Frank G. Lindsay, and on election day, doesn't matter because there's nobody in the building, but on budget and school board vote, the building is utilized and there's students in the building. And, 20 years ago, it was up through 20 years ago, was a great opportunity for the community to be able to see the building and see the students, and as they're engaging and all the fun, but it's a new world that we have today. And there is definitely some risk associated with having every single, where there's no IDing at a voting poll, right? So you have no idea who's walking into a building, and it is a conversation to be started to see if there's a better utilization of local facilities to house the vote. Yeah.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you, guys. Any other committees? All right, moving on. So our next section is for board comments and new business. And before we get into anything new, I'd like to talk about the item that's on the section 11.1, the first reading of a revision to policy 0000, which is our district's mission statement. I don't have the mission
I
statement.
have a copy here.
Is this with? Yes. Right, so I will read the policy. Yeah, let me get through the important part, but this goes on for a really long time. Okay, so the Hendrick Hudson School District communicates its educational philosophy through its mission statement and core beliefs. The mission of the Hendrick Hudson School District, a dynamic, innovative, and supportive educational community, is to ensure each student is an engaged, passionate learner who achieves.
There.
I know, I'm wondering, do I have to read how it was
You have to
first?
read the revision.
Just the revision, okay. Sorry about that. Learner who achieves their maximum potential and contributes to society. This is accomplished in a system.
Did you wait for the reading?
Okay, so I'll just say that one more time since I botched it. The mission of the Hendrick Hudson School District, a dynamic, innovative, and supportive educational community, is to ensure each student is an engaged, passionate learner who achieves their maximum potential and contributes to society.
So if I move to further reading, do you need a second?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. All right, so that is the first reading of the suggested policy change. I don't know if anybody has questions, wants to comment.
So I'm not sure that I like the idea of replacing versus either adding or deleting. So I think that the question is, we're removing the words his, or literally 3 words, his or her, replacing with their. Yes, am I, just for anyone not following along? Changing his or her, in my opinion, especially as we work on a strategic plan, I'm not sure if it is appropriate or not, and I don't know what it does as a district in terms of creating some new protocol. Are teachers now going to be chastised if they use his or her or boys and girls in a classroom? Now, I understand that there is a percentage of students who do not identify as a boy or a girl, or a man or a woman, or a male or female, or whatever that is. And I'm not suggesting that we want an environment that is not inclusive to everyone. But I don't know that it necessarily makes sense to remove his or her, because I don't know what the unintended consequences are. So I would suggest we either also add the word there, so his, her, there, to indicate that there is more than two, but it also doesn't remove the identity of those students who do identify as his or her. Or as an entirely separate piece, I don't even think we need anything there. I think we could eliminate his or her and not replace it and just simply state to ensure each student is an engaged, passionate learner who achieves maximum potential and contributes to society. So for me, it's either we add the word there to his or her, or we remove both and don't replace. And I understand the intent of the movement here. I just don't, there's a lot of different pieces going on, and the strategic plan in front of us, I think that it's important to be mindful of what may actually be interested of our community.
I'm just unclear on why we're doing this the way we're doing it procedurally. Because in 2008, your mission statement was revised through the strategic plan. In 2012, your mission statement was revised through your strategic plan. So if I'm just looking at past practices and have gone through the strategic planning process twice in my career, your mission statement is usually revised here and in other districts through the strategic planning process, which we're going through. And I agree with you, it has to be inclusive. But my point is more about procedurally how we do things. Like, are we setting precedent to say, forget how we used to do it, and this is how we're going to change it now? I'm just talking about procedures. I mean, it's got to get done. And I think that's why we're going through the strategic plan.
I think, yeah.
So, can I make a comment? So Jeremy, I agree with you. Like, if you want to either remove his, her, and their, I think that's great. I think it's just as long as it's inclusive, that's fine. There are 3 other references within that mission statement that refer to there. So you might want to either make it consistent or remove it, right? So if there are 3 other references to there are no other references to his and her, you either make this there or eliminate it altogether in this. Stephanie, to your point, I understand procedure, but this is a very simple thing. And as the strategic plan is done, you can always update this again. This is a very, very simple change that will mean a lot to a number of students. And I think that if we're trying to be an inclusive board, let's just make the change that Jeremy suggested, right? Remove his, her, and their, or say his, her, or their, right? Not that big a deal. Make it consistent with the rest of the policy though, because as you referenced there 3 other times, either remove it there or do his, her. But grammatically, there includes everybody. It includes his, her, and any other, like any other gender pronoun.
Which is probably why it was used elsewhere in the document.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Or was it plural? So I don't know. I didn't address the other points.
Students there, right? Students there, so grammatically it's correct. And it's more inclusive if you use there, but if you look at the rest of the policy, there are 3 other locations where they reference there in terms of students.
I don't have it to reference. I just have a little screenshot of it. Yeah, but again, I don't have an issue. The inclusivity component, I think, is generally agreed to, and there's no dispute there. It's just a question of how do we get there? And we can figure out, those are my 2
I'm
suggestions.
happy with either of your
Yeah.
suggestions.
Perfect. Well,
Either
that's
one, I 100% agree.
Yeah, okay.
What I don't agree with is waiting to make this change.
Okay.
Right? It sends a message to all our students that we care about them. And it sends a message to the community that we care about inclusiveness. And we can still make the changes from a procedural perspective related to the strategic plan. There's no reason why you can't do that. If you find that you need to make the changes, when I read through this mission statement, it's not a lot that needs to be changed.
I think mission statements get revised
They did.
each strategic plan process, they've been revised in Hendrick Hudson.
Yeah.
Since 2008. We've also received email correspondence from parents who want to weigh in on this revision. So I get what you're saying, and I, as an educator, Corey, I agree with you, but as my role up here is to make sure that we represent and are being totally transparent to community members. And we have not circumvented procedures before on how we do things. I'm, if we go down this road because it's easy, then what stops us from doing it for anything else that's easy, that someone wants to change, that they have a problem with? That's my, and since I've been on the board, you've been a stickler about procedures and how you should do things.
And we are following the procedure, right? So I'll ask you
Actually,
a question.
you're not though.
We're having 2 meetings on an amendment to policy.
But past practice in this district since 2008 with each revision of the mission statement. And it's right in your policy up
Hasn't
at the
been done
top.
since 2012.
I know,
2012
it was
last
done in
year.
2008 with your strategic plan, and your other strategic plan was 2011 to 2016. That's why it was done in 2012.
Okay, so what is the negative impact of making this change? Just, lay it out for the community. What is the negative impact in the fact that you're going to send a message to the students that we
No,
don't?
you're,
Yeah, I am sending a message to the students that.
I'm saying that the strategic plan process redoes the mission statement. And there's plenty of parents that have signed up for each committee. So what message am I sending? I'm waiting for their input because this is getting revised.
So who are the people that don't want to make this change then? This is a very simple.
The parents that emailed you, that you read, that
Two.
emailed the Board of Ed.
Yes, two people who said that somehow, they don't want this to be changed because, and I can't understand the rationale behind it because it doesn't impact them.
Okay, I'll tell you, because in some districts, teachers are reprimanded for saying, hey, boys and girls, come outside, or hey, guys, let's go to playtime. You're reprimanded. So some people might see this as a red flag. Well, I don't. But I'm saying that you are saying that that's where you're going.
So if you don't, and you feel that this is inclusive, and we all feel that this is inclusive,
I don't think
shouldn't we
it's
just
about
make
that.
this?
It's not about, it has nothing to do,
She herself agrees with you. She's just saying that you
Okay.
shouldn't.
But we're fighting over procedural issue, but we follow the procedure.
But this is a first reading,
This
so,
is the first
right, I
reading,
mean, I don't,
there's a
we're not
second reading
voting,
and a
so I
vote.
don't. Right, we did the first reading, this is now
But how does it
the
work
parent,
if
the
you-
public's opportunity.
What happens if you were to say who achieves his, her, or their maximum potential, or you take it all away? Does that bring us back to a first reading and we have to do it again?
No,
No, we need to, you
Revise
gotta
it.
decide when we're gonna be doing it the second reading.
Right, okay, got it. I mean, Steph, I totally agree with you. I also think that a lot of times those dates, they probably really revamped the guts. I mean,
Like
this
they
is
rewrote the
important
mission.
to people on all sides of it, so I'm on your page, right? I'm on your page. I think that we've been preaching community input, right? We don't want to ignore that people want to have input here. So I feel really torn over that. However, if you.
It's an
need
easy
to
change. I
end
agree with
there,
you.
right?
But I still think that since we said we were gonna be transparent and we were looking for all community input, like you're saying that we read it again and then it becomes part of policy.
Yeah, but you can change the policy again, choose, they can change
Yeah.
the statement
you
again.
change the policy, you do, when you're ready with the strategic plan, which is probably gonna take a little
I haven't heard
longer.
anything about the mission.
No, I haven't.
No,
Right?
I don't think,
Yeah, no
I
one
don't
has
know if it's.
Which
No
is-
one has said anything about the
Great.
mission statement, which is why I asked for this change. Right, and that was my point. So the mission statement has not, which is what I've been asking for 2 years for this change.
And I was thinking that why you didn't get the change for 2 years and it
Because
was
we were
all
waiting
because
for-
you were waiting
we were
for the
waiting.
strategic.
And
plan.
now it looks like in the strategic plan, they are not discussing changing the mission statement.
That's,
I'm just saying, they haven't
the
discussed
mission
it.
statement kind of goes with everything you redo with the strategic plan.
But I don't believe, I agree that I haven't seen any paperwork or even a discussion
I haven't
on the
heard
mission.
either.
I know they have pillars that they're discussing, so.
I
So
didn't see this on there.
you're probably talking months or even a year or maybe another year before the mission statement is changed. But in that case, you will go through a first meeting, you'll go through the second meeting, and you make that change.
But that,
I'm asking for something very simple, just to do it for now, just so that everyone feels included in this district. That's all I'm asking for.
I get that, and I am torn, because reading those emails and hearing, I completely get it. I am torn by past practices, and if you're telling me the strategic plan does not revamp the mission
And
statement,
I'm saying I've not seen it on
There's
it at all. That where it's not come to the surface yet.
not one pillar
Does any-
that is assigned to rewrite the mission statement.
Right, and if it's on some list, it's not risen to a high priority.
I would imagine it would be in 3 or 4, and I don't remember seeing it.
Maybe make a
Could be wrong.
suggestion that I can speak to Ronnie to see at education elements, if that was the plan. Or has it been discussed at some point and they decided, no, we're leaving it alone and we're working off pillars? So I can get that information back to you.
And I sort of do remember in the beginning when we went through our mission, we sort of developed our pillars off of our mission statement.
So you're specific.
Yeah, like, when we went through our vision and mission, I remember that's sort of how we developed what our pillars would be.
I would hope our vision changed a little bit since 2012.
I mean,
Not
I said it-
necessarily,
I think they're pretty.
a mission is supposed to, or a vision, right? So a vision is supposed to be very static, right? It is something that you look at for the future, and that's our huge vision. A mission usually is something tactically how you accomplish that vision, but we don't have the separation of vision and mission. So I think the mission itself is a combination of vision and mission. And this mission statement, if you look at it, right, educating being supportive educational community, like you look at that first paragraph, that's probably your vision. That's static, that's not gonna change. What you might do is maybe tactically, you'll do different things to accomplish that vision. But for the most part, a vision doesn't change, a mission rarely changes. If it's
Both
written-
strategic plans that I've been through, the mission statement has changed.
We have a meeting
That's-
tomorrow with that.
That's great. I hope that it's done, but from what I've seen, it hasn't, which is why I'm asking for this change.
I get it.
So do we want to go with Jeremy, I'm good with either of Jeremy's recommendations.
I like the idea of being consistent throughout the document. However we do it.
There is consistent throughout the document. And you can refer to it later.
Most of the, they're not his or her, they're like individual,
There are three applications.
they don't actually, on many opportunities, it doesn't say his or her. It just,
There is no reference to his or her except for in the top.
that is true. Okay.
Should we wait for community feedback, whether people are gonna come and speak next meeting, or we're gonna
Well,
use
that's
more
the whole
emails?
point of the
Yeah,
next 2 weeks, right? So we do the first meeting, you get everybody's feedback the next 2 weeks. And then when we have the next meeting, we can also open it to community comment before we vote on it.
Well, we can't vote on it if it's not written properly.
So really, if we do
Right.
it a third time, what it sounds like may make the most sense.
Yeah, we're gonna have
I
to wait a
understand we have a
couple.
meeting to
No,
the
that's-
14th and the 28th, but hear me out one sec. What we have to do, what we can do, don't have to be the same thing as what I'm saying. And I'm not suggesting we don't make the change. We talked about this.
Yeah.
I'm with you, right? I understand where you're coming from. And to give 2 readings is what we have to do. But maybe we can look through this document and see those other 3 scenarios, and if
I
they're,
think we should read some of them.
You want me to read
Yes,
the sentences? Where they
No,
have-
no, about looking what other.
yeah, I'm just saying, because then we can come back with a revision for next week, read it, and then vote on it at the following, and that will be the last meeting of the year.
So the last meeting of the year for Ally and I is the 14th, right? Is there a 28th meeting? I didn't think there's a
We'll
28th
add it.
meeting.
No, it's just.
Oh, do you want one more?
There's
last around.
There's the 14th and then we go into
Oh, I thought
I'm
there was
busy.
one more.
because at the end of the school year.
I thought there was one more.
Yeah, no. Ally and I have been counting the days.
But for the next meeting,
One
we can
meeting.
bring other mission bring other mission statements from surrounding districts.
But then we can't
Especially-
vote.
But then we can't vote.
Why can't
Yeah,
we?
you can.
As
You
long
can
as
vote
no
on this in
one,
the same meeting.
no one's changed, it
Yeah.
has to be, it has to be written.
No, an amendment,
That's right.
an amendment, so if you look at this policy, the amendment and the reading and the vote are the same date. Okay, because in an amendment, historically for this board, you can do a reading and a vote on the same date. For a new policy, you have two separate
So you
readings.
prepare multiple?
That's been our procedure.
No, you need to find out what's the preference.
That's what I'm saying. That's why if we don't know right
Well,
now.
you need to, you haven't asked them what they want.
No, they don't want it. They don't want to know right now. Everyone wants to come back at the next meeting to.
No, I would like to make a motion to vote on the newly proposed wording, and either of Jeremy's suggestions are fine with me, I'm
Today?
fine with, yeah. Well, you propose on the wording, then what you do is you create the new document, and then you read it again the second time in 2 weeks.
Feedback.
So we're gonna put two options and you guys are voting the next one. We're gonna either be there or. His,
Or
her.
his, or,
Or there.
his, her, or there,
You guys are gonna
there,
vote
or-
on which one you want.
or there.
Or none.
Is it
Or-
his
Why
slash
not?
her slash there?
Well, you can't have three,
Comma.
because then you have a split forward.
No, I meant, is it his, her, there, or just?
So just to call out, like, where I think there's slight differences, right, which is why I'm suggesting the way I did it. When in the last bullet point, it's a plural when we use there, it's,
Correct.
and this is a
No,
singular,
this is a plural, it refers to students.
no, it says student, singular.
It says, hold on, I don't have it in front of me.
To ensure each student,
Each student is a plural. Each student is a plural. Because that's multiple students. You could say
Not
each
singular.
student, no, it's not. A student.
I'm not-
Sorry, English teacher.
A student is a singular.
I don't know what,
No,
any English teacher watching.
each student is.
Thank you. Defer to the lifelong educator.
Each student,
Sorry.
that's all I'm saying.
Okay. And why did we say each student with his or her? That makes it singular, doesn't it?
It's, that's what I'm saying, it's grammatically incorrect if you follow the rest of the document.
So why don't we just take it out?
That's fine. I'm saying that.
It's weird if you take it out. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't sound grammatically cool. You take it out, I'll be honest.
No,
Achieves
you can say
maximum
it.
potential learner who
little rough.
achieves maximum
It's a
potential
terrible
and.
sentence as it is.
I don't love our mission.
It's not written well.
When I revise the whole.
I do.
No, I
Not that,
don't.
no.
No,
Another day.
no, I think.
That's supposed to be part of the strategic plan.
It is
So I was
supposed to be
looking
part of
for,
the strategic plan.
that's what I need to look at.
Yeah. We can talk about it
So
tomorrow.
which options do you want to put on the
You
table?
need to put an option, so you know what you're coming back to vote.
Yeah, what do you guys want on the table for next meeting?
I mean, it's either, is it none or there? I don't, right? I mean, I think
None
those
or
are the two that. Cause
What
the
is
his,
her,
her,
there?
there is
Is
weird,
there, there is.
not grammatically correct. So it's either none or there. I mean, those are both. I don't know if then with nothing is grammatically correct. I guess I'd have to.
It works.
Sounds great.
It works. It
Sounds
just doesn't
weird.
sound great, but it works.
Just take it out.
Oh,
Either way.
I mean, it's gonna get revised anyway. Your strategic. Please tell me that your strategic plan is revising the mission.
I actually really don't remember it. And if you look at our bullet points, those are our pillars.
Yep.
Literally, those are our
Came
pillars.
from our mission statement.
Rigorous.
From 2012, you used the mission statement from 2012.
If you look at our pillars, those are.
If you look at 2008,
I'm not looking at that, I'm just telling you, when I've sat on the strategic plan meetings thus far and how the pillars were developed, they align from this mission. I know we talked about mission statements, don't get me wrong, but I cannot remember. You know what, we'll ask Erica when she comes back,
Right.
because she is always here, but.
And we have,
we're
we
always
have, we have a project team
We'll get it
meeting
either
tomorrow,
way.
so we can find out tomorrow, about how
I mean, at
it
elementary,
all fits, yeah, how it fits in.
So do we want none or there?
well, we're gonna vote on it next time, correct? I
But
mean,
yeah,
you're
We have
okay
to
with
put
that,
forth
right?
what we're gonna vote on, I thought. or-
Great,
Yeah.
we can bring,
Yeah.
you can bring two, or no, you have to bring only one next time.
Should be one.
Yeah, it should be one so that people can comment.
Okay, I think it sounds weird with nothing there, so I would,
Yeah, I agree that it sounds good. there. But if that's what the majority feels, I'm okay with it. I will stand
I can't-
behind what the majority feels.
I'm neutral as long as it's inclusive. But I do agree, it sounds weird if you don't have it.
I feel like it's reads awkwardly to have nothing there. So as it's been proposed, this is how I think it reads most
Okay.
naturally and is inclusive.
Want to make a motion for that? And make a motion for that.
What's on the board?
Yes. Yes,
I'll
to move,
second.
To bring back.
to bring back, yes,
To
that's
bring
right.
back for a second reading.
Yes, and vote
Yes.
on the 14th.
What we have there, yes.
So to remove his, her, and replace it with that.
As it was read today, yes.
And that's just to bring back. I mean, we'll get public.
So I had the first, you had the second. We have to have 4 though.
I don't know how I feel about this. I feel sad that his, her is leaving as well. Like there's gotta be a better way to write this sentence. So I'm just gonna let you guys decide.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind that there
Yeah.
there includes.
First,
there
second,
includes
is there a
his-
majority vote? Go ahead.
My issue is the
All in
unintended
favor?
consequence of removing it. There does, but it also sends a message that is going to end up, we will end up removing his and her as part of our language.
But we won't.
What,
Why would we? Because you have multiple genders, you have his, her,
right,
their,
but here's what's gonna happen.
they,
Hear me
them,
out.
they, ze, right?
So, without a doubt, but it's going to become a point where there's going to be an expectation, and we're putting it forward right now. That we will enter a realm where each student singularly will be required to be addressed without an identification of a pronoun that shadows what is presumed or has been shared with what they want to have for their own identity.
So okay, so I agree with that, is that every student should be addressed with their preferred gender. That's exactly what you just said.
I don't
Right?
disagree,
So
except for
if it's his, her, unknown, right? That's all we're asking.
But there's a difference between, if I know your preference and I intentionally choose to address you differently than your preference, that is wrong.
Correct.
But I shouldn't be penalized if I'm not using more global
No, but you should ask
identifiable
people what their
term.
preference is.
Yes, but a
Right, that's
teacher
what I
has,
always do, you make a safe space to say, what is your preferred gender, right? What is your preferred pronoun? And I will address you by that preferred pronoun, and I will make mistakes for quite a long time, which
Wait, you think that
right?
teachers are doing this with each student?
well, that's what they should be doing.
And what if
Right,
the
and
teacher
that's
makes a
what they're doing right
mistake
now
by
with
accident?
students.
What if the teacher makes a mistake by accident?
Everybody makes mistakes. You
I mean,
make
just
a
because
mistake,
like
you learn from it,
you
and you
get
move
kind
on.
of frazzled in the day when you have 24, 28
Everybody-
kids in front of you.
Ev-
Fire drill, fire alarm goes off, lockdown drill.
Everybody makes mistakes.
I mean, I call my kids
Stephanie.
by the wrong
It's
names, though.
Part of it, but it's the fact that they're trying, it's the fact that they're making the effort, it's the fact that they're creating a safe space.
I think
For
all
people.
educators do that, Corey. I
Right,
mean,
so-
I really do.
So why is this an issue then?
well, I'm sharing with you why I think it is. So that's my
But
explanation.
we're not, so we're saying do what you're already doing. We as a district now support that. That's all we're saying. Do what you're
Well,
already
you
doing.
removed it.
We're documenting that
I'm
we
share-
support that.
I
And we
disagree.
include everybody.
I agree with what we're doing right now, and I agree with our conversation, and I agree with what is really a common interest in arriving in the same place. I don't think we're taking the same path to get there, and I think that some of us have concerns that others don't about what the unintended consequences are of the change as it's written. There's more than just the 7 of us that live here, which is why we're talking about it, right? And I would be very disappointed if we made no change, because now that it's brought to our attention, I am incredibly uncomfortable with not changing it at all, because there are some kids that are going to fall into a bucket that does not exist with his, right?
So
I'm
I'll
with
vote for eliminating there, right? I'll vote for eliminating his, her, and there. Just
Yeah,
remove it,
because I'm with
right?
you. I'm
And
with
then
you.
I'll stay with it. Like I said, I just
Yeah.
want it to be inclusive. It might read a little weird, right? My preference would be to have there, but we're accomplishing the same objective if we remove it all.
100% agree.
Okay, so I will vote for removing it, right? Who achieves maximum potential and contributes to society? Right? Are we okay with that? If that will get it.
Absolutely.
It sounds weird. It will change again in the future, but.
And I'm also okay with adding it so that I just, again, my concern is you start removing it and then it's gonna be a,
But we're still
is there,
moving.
what's that?
Well, we're going in a circle right now. I think we just need to decide what we're doing at the next meeting, so we can. move on. What do you guys wanna do? Somebody make a motion on how this is gonna look. Can you say it one more time? I'm sorry. I don't know.
I made the motion and then,
No, but you guys changed your mind since then.
I haven't changed my mind.
Well,
You still wanted to say there.
I think
I'm supportive, listen, I prefer there, but if it's going to take removing it to get it passed for the next meeting, that's fine.
I could do that too, but. Then
This is compromise.
I can compromise.
Me too, thank you.
Then you made
Somebody
a
has to make
motion.
a motion for how they want it to read.
I'll make a motion to remove his or her and their. And have it just read passionate learner who achieves maximum potential and contributes to society.
Okay, so you can second. Sure, second.
All in favor? All right, or
Jen, what are you, a yes or
She
no?
voted.
she voted yes.
Yes.
You didn't.
Nope. All right, any other new business for this evening? None? All good? Okay, can I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Second.